that keeps us young.
Welcome to My Zone Online School. My name is Linda Chipanga, and welcome to my friend. Today's lesson is grade 7 science. But before we start with our lesson, remember to put on your mask, and let's also sanitize our hands. Let's rub it through our fingers and around our hands. And also do not forget the social distance on the sides and to the front as well. Now, today's lesson is health education, sexuality, and sexual health. Please turn to page 23. Health education, sexuality, and sexual health. Now, let's quickly look at our competencies. Identify from diagrams the different stages of sexual development from infancy to old age. Investigate and report on different sources of information and support about sexual health and sexuality. Explain what constitutes sexual health, be it physical or emotional. Explain why sexual health is important. Now the vocabulary. Sexuality. Sexuality is the physical and emotional readiness for sexual intercourse. Sexual health. Being physically, mentally, socially healthy in relation to sexuality. Let's turn to page 24, where we have different diagrams or pictures on the stages of the human development. Now, on the chalkboard, we have different stages of sexual development. The first stage is a baby or infant, and then we have the childhood. The next stage is the adolescent, and the next stage will be the adulthood, as you can see, and the last stage is the old age. Now, let's move on to the sources of information and support about sexual health and sexuality. You know, as young children, as adolescents, you need to have information on sexual health and your sexuality. But your friends are not really that well equipped with information. So you need to visit different places that can offer you with good quality information. These places, we call them the sources of information on sexuality and sexual health. Now, these places are the clinics and hospitals, the Lifeline and Childline, the Women and Child Protection Unit. Now we are moving on to what constitutes sexual health, be it physical or emotional. What constitutes sexual health, you shouldn't only be physically healthy, be it you preventing yourself from getting STDs or sexually transmitted diseases. You should also have a positive and a respectful approach to sexuality and sexual relationships. That's basically what constitutes sexual health. Now, why is it important for you to be healthy sexually? So that you can live a happy life, to avoid getting infections, and to avoid unwanted pregnancies. Let's turn to page 25. On page 25, you can find your activity. This is activity 1. Number 1, identify the stages of sexual development from the diagrams below. You should just fill in the spaces provided. Number 2, explain why sexual health is important. I hope you have enjoyed this lesson. And please remember to sanitize your hands and always put on your mask. So goodbye.
Hi everyone, I'm Joshi. And make sure to always make a helicopter circle, stretching your arms out and spinning around like me. And make sure you're not touching anyone while doing this. Goodbye.
When you're saying things that degrade women, for me, number one, I am not there, because that is basically what I don't believe in. I don't stand for things that degrade women.
What do you think we can add? What can we put in the basket? First of all, let's put Blossom back in the basket.
Look at the person like, man, let's do a song.
Let's do something.
Just
let's
like
collaborate.
Let's collaborate.
The Africans were claiming us.
Yes, exactly. To the rest of the world, they belong to us. Namibia, Baba, Namibia.
I'll help you carry on.
Creating music and putting some stuff out for the people who've been supporting me, that's definitely something that's next on my list.
Hello, welcome to my Zone online school. My name is Linda Shipanga, and I'm not alone. I'm with Pomwene. Welcome, Pomwene. And let's always remember to put on our masks. And we should always sanitize our hands in between the fingers as well. And do not forget the social distance. So today's lesson will be, it's Science Grade 7, Health Education, Sexuality, and Sexual Health. All right, let's turn to page 23, where we'll be looking at our basic competencies. So by the end of this lesson, you should be able to discuss and compare methods of maintaining sexual health. And you should be able to identify risky sexual practices. And you should also be able to describe the impact of risky sexual practices on the individual, family, community, and society. Now, the vocabulary, these are the words that the new words that you have to learn. Risky, the word risky means involving the possibility of something bad happening. Impact, the influence that one thing has on something else. To maintain means to keep something. Now let's look at the methods of maintaining sexual health. As you can see on the chalkboard, we have different pictures on different methods of maintaining sexual health. The first one is abstinence. To abstain basically meaning to say no to sex. To all the sexual activities, you should totally abstain, you should totally say no. And then we move to the next one, is faithfulness. You must be faithful to one trustable partner. In this method of maintaining sexual health, if one or both of the partners are not faithful to each other, and then they have sexual intercourse with somebody else, which is, for example, unprotected sex, then they can contract an STD or STI, which is sexually transmitted infections, and then they can pass it on to their partner. So this faithfulness is mostly suitable for married couples. And then we move to condom use. So we have different types of condoms. You can find the condoms at the clinics or hospitals. And then we have two types of condoms for male condoms, and the female condoms, which are called the femidoms. So you can still make use of the condoms. The condoms act as a barrier between the two partners, just the same way as the doctors are putting on gloves to protect themselves and their patients from getting germs. It works the same way. So the condoms traps sperms so that they do not go to the next person. The sperms do not enter the woman, so she will not be able to contract any infections, and then she will not be able to fall pregnant. Among these three methods of maintaining sexual health, abstinence is the best and the most effective method. And you should actually abstain. All right? Now, let's quickly turn to page 24, whereby we'll be looking at the risky sexual practices. What are risky sexual practices? These are actions that put you in danger and that have a negative impact on your sexual health. What are these risky sexual practices? Sex without a condom, multiple sexual partners. When you have more than one sexual partner, for a boy, maybe you have three girlfriends, or for a girl, you have maybe two boyfriends, for instance, and you are having sexual intercourse with all of them. Those are multiple sexual partners. Sugar daddies and sugar mommies. Let's look at the sugar daddies. What are sugar daddies? Sugar daddies are older men, much older men, that usually engage into sexual relationships with much younger girls. They give them money and they give them gifts, and they have sexual intercourse with them. Sugar mummies are older, much older ladies that have sexual intercourse or sexual relationship with much younger boys. And they give them gifts, they give them money and all sorts kind of things. Sometimes they even give them a lift to school in their cars. And then we look at the sex workers. Sex workers, these are people that sell sex for money. They go at the lights, for example, the robots there, and then they find men, they get into their cars according to what they have agreed on, and then they get into men's cars, and then when they go to their place, have sexual intercourse with them, and then they get paid for having sexual intercourse with different kind of men. And those activities are very risky because now you are having sex with this person, having sex with another person. Imagine you having sexual intercourse with 5 different kind of people. It will be so difficult to tell each one to put on a condom. Okay, you come to this one, put on a condom, at the end of the day, you are like, I'm getting used to this one now, and then it's not always easy to convince now each and every person to use a condom. At the end of the day, you might just end up having unprotected sexual intercourse, and then that's really, really risky. Let's move on to the impacts. These are physical and emotional impacts of risky sexual practices on the individual, on the family, community, and society. When you engage in these risky sexual practices, it doesn't only affect you, it affects your family, it affects the community, and just the society at large. Your neighbors. What are the physical impacts? Death. You can die. When you contract diseases like HIV, you might die. And then it also leads to spreading of diseases. You pass the disease to this person and then to the next person, just like that. It also leads to unwanted pregnancies. And the other impact as well are looking after a baby of a sick person. Now, you are sick, your parents or your neighbors or just your family members have to look after that baby because you are sick, or when you have died. Now people have to look after your children or your baby when you have died. It can be the community, yes, or your family members. Now, what are the emotional impacts? This is the hurt of feelings. When you are, for example, when you are sick, it affects people. People are hurt. Everybody's thinking about it, and it affects them really badly. Okay? So now that's our lesson on different kinds of methods of maintaining sexual health, risky sexual practices, and the physical and emotional impacts. Okay, so you should be able to do this activity on page 25. Quickly go to page 25 so that we can look at this activity. A, discuss and compare methods of maintaining sexual health. Discuss and compare methods of maintaining sexual health. Those are three methods that I want you to answer there. And B, identify risky sexual practices. C, describe the impact, be it physical and emotional altogether. These are the impact of risky sexual practices on the individual, on the family, community, and society. Okay, let's quickly recap on our lesson for today, which is sexual health. And then we looked at the methods of maintaining sexual health, which is abstinence, faithfulness, and condom use. And the risky sexual practices are sex without a condom, multiple sexual partners, sugar daddies and sugar mommies, sex workers. The impacts, or be it physical or emotional, of the risky sexual practices on the family, individual, community, and society. It can lead to death, spreading of diseases, unwanted pregnancies, and looking after a baby of a sick person or a dead person. And this can also lead to hurt of feelings of family members and just the community at large. I hope you have enjoyed today's lesson. So let's not forget to always wear our masks, sanitize, and then do not remember the social distance. As from me and Pomwene, it's goodbye.
Hi everyone, I'm Joshi. And Simon says don't touch your face, your eyes, your nose, and your mouth unless your hands are super clean. Bye!
Akili, 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 akili. Water, water, wash your hands. Scrub with soap, wash your hands. Front and back, wash your hands. To be clean and safe. Wash your hands before you eat your breakfast. Wash your hands before you eat your lunch. Wash your hands before you eat your dinner. Wash your hands before you start to munch. Water, water, wash your hands. Scrub with soap, wash your hands. Front and back, wash your hands. To be clean and safe. Wash your hands after using the toilet. touch animals. Wash your hands to wash all the germs off. Water, water, wash your hands. Scrub with soap, wash your hands. Front and back, wash your hands to be clean and safe. Wash your hands before you eat your breakfast, before you eat your lunch, before you eat your dinner, before you start to munch, after using the toilet, after you sneeze or cough, after you touch animals, to wash all the germs off. Wash your hands! Water, water, wash your hands. Scrub with soap, wash your hands. Front and back, wash your hands to be clean and safe.
Many countries that have passed their first peak of COVID-19 are experiencing a second rise in cases. Is this a second wave of infections, and could even more waves lie ahead? Previous pandemics might give us a clue. The 1918 Spanish flu was the most deadly pandemic in modern history. It killed at least 50 million people. Its second wave was the most deadly by far, killing millions more than the first and third. More recent outbreaks, such as SARS and swine flu, have also had 2 or more waves, so it looks like the COVID-19 pandemic could have several too. The World Health Organization has warned about the dangers of a deadly resurgence. Many countries and places have seen infections accelerate after bringing their first waves under control. These rises aren't necessarily new waves, they could be spikes. Spikes are rapid rises in cases that aren't sustained, whereas waves happen over longer periods and often contain several spikes or peaks. Second waves only take place after a first wave has retreated. Many scientists believe more waves are inevitable and think a worse one could hit during autumn or winter. Some other coronaviruses spread faster when the weather is cold. If this is the case with COVID-19, it would put health systems under huge pressure. Many people are still vulnerable, and immunity to the virus might only last a few months for those who recover. It's also possible that mutations to the virus could lead to new waves. Hundreds of mutations have been found, and some could potentially make the pandemic more severe. One mutation may have already improved the ability of the virus to bind its spike proteins to human cells. This strain of the virus appears to unlock cells more easily and has become dominant around the world. It's unknown how the virus will continue to change, but further mutations could make it even more dangerous and harder to control. A reliable vaccine would help solve many of these problems, but it may take many months or even years to find one. Until then, we all need to make long-term lifestyle changes to protect ourselves from further waves. How are you learning to live in a world with COVID-19?
In a corner of southern Africa lies a vast and sparse land, where endless horizons, dramatic scenery, and untouched wilderness abound. (1,500 kilometers of harsh desert coastline, a mosaic of biodiversity, sub-Saharan savanna, acacia bushland, encased by 2 deserts. Home to wildlife and wilderness abundant, yet ever at risk. This is Namibia, home to some of the most noteworthy conservation success stories across the globe. Initiatives forged, manned, and driven by passionate individuals and groups.
People are busy there walking for more than 45 kilometers a day.
Special species and wild locations under constant threat from an increasingly destructive developing world.
One of the world's true survivors.
This is the story of the Namibian wilderness, the stories of the enigmatic wildlife and natural wonders of her realm.
They are not a threat to anyone, if you understand them.
This is the story of those determined to preserve it, and thereby themselves.
Don't think I want to tell my children one day that we had rhinos in Namibia. I want to show them live rhinos.
This is the story of the last defenders.
We have been tracked them for about 7 days, and on the 7th day, we come across the butchers, and there was a shooting. We are not armed. We having a camera and GPS. We are just hiding behind the bushes. If I don't protect this species, who's gonna do that? So is that why I sacrificed my life to go on conserve the rhinos.
Armed out in the field with basically a notebook against poachers that are armed with highly dangerous weapons and more. How is this an equal fight?
I started right on the ground as a tracker, and I worked all the way up to be the CEO now, and I know how hard it is. It's commitment and dedication and the patience that you have for the animal. It's really hard. It's like you had something in your house that you are protecting for so long, and when you go away from home, somebody comes and kills you.
It was April 16th, 2016. An earthquake registering 7.8 magnitude on the Richter scale struck the South American nation of Ecuador. Hundreds of people died, thousands remained unaccounted for, and hundreds of thousands more are lacking life's basic necessities, especially those living in the cities of Manta and Pedernales.
No hay agua, no hay luz, no hay víveres para comer.
UNICEF está aquí apoyando en la ciudad de Pedernales en el evento del terremoto que se dio el día domingo en la noche. Ha sido muy impactante ver cómo la ciudad está destruida. Si hablamos en porcentajes, podemos decir que un 90% de la ciudad está destruida.
In these types of humanitarian emergencies, the most helpless always pay the heaviest price. Ecuadorian children are the most needy and the most vulnerable. Many are afraid and unsure of their safety amid the turmoil and chaos in the aftermath of the quake.
Hay mucha afectación en los niños tienen temor de ingresar a sus casas porque sienten que se les va a caer el techo encima. Y también hay mucha angustia de pensar y de ver que sus escuelas han sido destruidas totalmente. Aquí hay 15 escuelas y todas están destruidas y les preocupa mucho el no poder regresar a clases.
According to the United Nations Children's Fund, UNICEF, more than 150,000 children have been affected. Now, it's a race against time to protect them from disease and starvation.
No hay carro para viajar, ningún lado. Ya, entonces, los niños, leche no hay ropa para los bebés, se cayeron casi todas las casas aquí.